Hello, I'm Owen Hall, and this is the From the Field to the Diamond podcast. In today's podcast, we will discuss the upcoming Major League Baseball season. First, the top five teams that had the best offseason, then the top 10 players going into 2025, on to a game of Would You Rather, and finally, 2025 MLB season predictions. But first, I have a very special guest on air, Dr. Michael Bliley.
Whoa, doctor. I'm always Coach Mike to you, bud. Um, Before we get started, it's an honor to be here. I'd like to say thank you for having me on, but we do need to settle a bet. I believe last year I owe you this for the Dodgers winning the World Series and you predicting correctly. My Phillies went home early. We'll get to that here later on, obviously. But I would like all your fans and viewers to know that I've known you for a long time, a long, long time. Back when you were a Nationals fan and then a Mets fan, and now currently obviously a Dodgers fan. So I can't wait to see what the next team's going to be as we move forward. Okay, if the Phillies win the World Series in the next 5 years, maybe you'll be in a Phillies jersey. So
First, we're going to talk about the teams that had the best offseason. Um, Top five teams. First, the Arizona Diamondbacks for me, line number five. Obviously signed Corbin Burns, a big thing there in the NL West, and then Kendall Graveman, and they re-signed Geraldo Perdomo. Um, this obviously will affect teams in that division like the Dodgers, Giants, and teams like that. What do you think?
So reviewing this, I agree with you. I also think that, going back to Corbin Burns, his past workload with not only the Orioles, but going back to the Brewers, what's that going to look like? I don't know how long the contract was for. Do you remember what he signed for? Was
Like
it
6 years?
Yeah, so that's a long, long time for a 30-year-old. So I'd like to see what the back end of that contract's going to look like for them. But right now, obviously, it's a great signing up front for them. Kendall Graveman, he was out He out all last year with something with his shoulder, I think. Yeah, so obviously we want to see what the bounce back looks like coming in 2025. His ERA is pretty decent when he did pitch. I don't know how they'll use him out of the pen, but obviously that was okay. Perdomo, not really sure that he strikes fear in the lineup, but he's solid. I think he's pretty good. But I was going to counter with you that I thought another team did pretty well that maybe we should include as like tied for fifth would have been the Cubs, just because of the Tucker trade, them signing Ryan Priestley and Brazier from your team, the Dodgers, in the offseason. But also I just saw that they picked up Justin Turner for, 2 or 3, I think it was either 2 or 3 year deal. But I think the Cubs did, pretty decent job this offseason as well. And I think they could be considered as fifth overall. But yeah, I agree with what you said with the Diamondbacks.
Moving on to my number four, I have the Boston Red Sox. Obviously, they had got Garrett Crochet through a trade, and then signed Aroldis Chapman, and then obviously just a few weeks ago, right before spring training started up, Alex Bregman. Um,
Agreed. I mean, this also we could also slide them up a little higher too, right? Just the Crochet trade as well, and the Bregman signing alone. But you put Bregman in that lineup with Devers right now, and I know they're having conversations of where they're going to play. And I think Bregman's agreed to move to second. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Devers is going to stay at third. But Crochet he's solid. I mean, he's going to get away from the lowly White Sox and come to a real team. He's going from the basement to the penthouse, and I mean, he had a 5.9 WAR last year. Just imagine what he's going to be with the White Sox this year, or excuse me, the Red Sox now. Lefty star is going to pair very well with Walker Buehler in that rotation. The only thing I'd say about their offseason is the Aroldis Chapman. How much does he have left in the tank with his velocity? It was down from last year. I think he's still throwing mid-90s, but what's that going to look like? I think he's, 35, 36, 37, somewhere in there. So, a flamethrower for most of his career, what's that going to be, in 2025? So, but yeah, I think I agree with you. They had a great offseason, and I think they could have been maybe slid up a little bit higher if we had to. So.
Moving on to my number three, I have the New York Mets. It seemed like every week they were adding, pitching depth, major league and minor league.
Yep.
But obviously, right as free agency kind of started, they signed Soto to that, large deal there. And then just a few weeks ago, they re-signed Pete Alonso.
Yeah, and they had actually the most. I looked at it from. This is obviously a great team that you put on here. I looked at it from the most total WAR increases from where they were at the end of the season till now with the projections. So signing Juan Soto alone and then re-signing Alonso has bumped them up tremendously. I mean, they already have Bonilla, Senga, Peterson, solid three right there. They're going to be tough in any series throughout the season. And then obviously, if they were able to make the postseason again, uh, you know, but going back to it, look at some of the ages on these guys: Lindor 31, Alonso 30, McNeil 32. That was like their core hitters, prior to them signing Juan Soto. Soto's 26. So what did he sign for? Was it 10-year?
Like 15.
Was something like that? So at age 26, where are all these guys going to be? You know what I mean? So like, I understand why he did it. I read this morning that Soto turned down a lot more money from other teams. He wanted to be in New York. So, he's a man of his word, obviously. Let's see what he does. But, yeah, I think the Mets did a great job going out and getting those guys, and they were very competitive at the end of last season. They made a little run, and, we'll see what they do. So, yep.
Moving on to my number 2, I have the Yankees. They signed Max Fried, and then obviously they signed Paul Goldschmidt, and then traded for Devin Williams, traded for Bellinger. One of the things is I actually think them doing all of this, signing all these people instead of signing Soto was actually a better option than signing Soto.
No, I agree with you. And Max Fried alone is going to make them, with Garrett Cole, just one of the most feared 1-2 duos out there. I agree with that wholeheartedly. They were able to sign Max Fried because they didn't get Juan Soto. But I mean, we say that, but again, it's the New York market. You never know. I mean, they're the evil empire for a reason. They have all kinds of money, kind of like what LA's doing right now on the West Coast. But I agree with you. I mean, the only thing I saw, Cody Bellinger, who's going to show up? Is it Jekyll and Hyde? Which Cody Bellinger is going to be there this year? He went from an MVP to absolutely like nothing. You know what I mean? Like it's So we'll see what that does. But Paul Goldschmidt, gotta love him. I followed his career. I loved him his whole career, but he's getting old. Is he still going to have the same kind of pop in that lineup? And I know he'll have Judge and some of these other guys, but his job is going to be to protect those guys. So what's that going to look like? You know what I mean? So I agree with you. The Max Fried signing puts them, in my opinion, yes, right at 1 or at 2 or 3 where you had them, and Bellinger, I hope plays out for him. So.
Moving on to my number 1 is the Los Angeles Dodgers, World Series champions. Obviously signed Blake Snell and then Tanner Scott and Roki Sasaki. Those are just 3 of the players that stood out to me, the most. Obviously, they signed a lot more people than just that. But I think they're number 1, obviously.
Yeah, I think I'm going to see a theme today with Dodgers being number 1 on this podcast with you. But I do agree with you here. The Dodgers did have the best offseason. I think they were the number 1 team in the offseason with their signings. Blake Snell, pairing him with a healthy Glasnow and some of these other guys, it's just going to be unbelievable. Looking at his workload, they need to increase that, I think, get that innings pitch back up again. Tanner Scott, obviously, flamethrower, going to be awesome. And the only thing I'll say is just Sasaki, we don't know. I mean, obviously he was great pitching in Japan, but what's he going to do here? His trajectory shows he's going to be just fine. I think he'll be just fine, but he's never pitched in a major league game yet, so we don't know. But I agree with you. Dodgers are somehow reloading every single year, and as a Phillies fan, it's kind of frustrating sitting back and watching that. My team wasn't in the top 5, so but it is what it is.
All right, now we're going to move on to the top 10 players going into 2025. I'm going to start.